In a quiet suburban neighborhood of Chicago sits Sarah Thompson's small house. Sarah is a third-grade teacher at a highly regarded elementary school in the area. Her days are dedicated to nurturing her students' curiosity and planting seeds of knowledge. After school, Sarah often spends time in the nearby community garden. Touching the soil and watching plants grow is her form of therapy. Chatting with her gardening friends is also one of her daily pleasures. On weekends, Sarah's house is filled with lively voices. Her daughter Emily and 8-year-old grandson Ethan come to visit. Emily works as a nurse at the local hospital and leads a busy life. Even so, she cherishes her time with her mother, Sarah. Ethan is an inquisitive little boy who looks forward to coming to his grandmother's house. He loves growing vegetables in the garden with Sarah and baking cookies in the kitchen. His innocent smile brings a bright light to Sarah's life. However, Sarah has been worried about her daughter lately. Emily's smile doesn't seem to shine as brightly as it used to. Sarah had a vague feeling that there might be some problems in Emily's relationship with her husband, Jason. But Emily kept saying, "I'm fine," to avoid worrying her mother. Sarah sometimes questioned herself, wondering if she was being overly intrusive in her desire for her daughter's happiness. But her maternal instinct told her that something wasn't right. Still, Sarah told herself she should wait for Emily to open up on her own. In the midst of this, on a rainy night, an event occurs that will greatly change Sarah's life. That night would be the beginning of a violent shake-up of the peaceful daily life she had built up until then. That night, a fierce thunderstorm was hitting Chicago. Sarah was sitting on the living room sofa, enjoying a book while listening to the sound of rain. Occasionally, the light of lightning illuminating the window cast eerie shadows in the room. Suddenly, a loud knocking sound echoed from the front door. Sarah looked up from her book in surprise and glanced at the clock. It was past 10 p.m. Who could it be at this hour, and in this terrible weather? Cautiously approaching the door, she opened it to find Ethan standing there, soaking wet from head to toe. His eyes were wide with fear, and his whole body was trembling. "Grandma! Help Mommy!" Ethan cried out. "Mommy fell down and she's coughing up a lot of blood." For a moment, Sarah couldn't believe her ears. But seeing her grandson's desperate expression, she realized the seriousness of the situation. She sprang into action immediately. "Ethan, you did well to come here," Sarah said in a calm voice. "First, we need to get you dry." She quickly handed Ethan a towel and helped him change into dry clothes. All the while, various possibilities were racing through Sarah's mind. Had Emily's chronic condition worsened, or what about your daddy? Sarah asked nervously. "He hit Mommy and left." Ethan's voice was small and shaky. Sarah's heart pounded fiercely. Her worst fears had come true. But now, she needed to stay calm. "I understand. Let's go to Mommy right away." In the rain, Sarah bundled Ethan into the car. The journey that usually takes 15 minutes felt much longer due to the poor visibility from the heavy rain, forcing her to drive carefully. The car was enveloped in a heavy silence. Sarah was desperately trying to maintain her composure, but her chest tightened with worry for her daughter's safety. Ethan silently stared out the window, but occasionally, the sound of his sniffling could be heard. Finally arriving at Emily's house, Sarah rushed to the front door. It was open. "Emily! Emily!" Sarah called out as she entered the house. Entering the living room, she found Emily lying there, covered in blood. Broken glass was scattered across the floor, and the room was in disarray. Sarah rushed to her daughter's side and checked for a pulse. It was faint, but there. With a sigh of relief, Sarah immediately called for an ambulance. "Emily, hang in there. Help is on the way," Sarah said, clutching her daughter's hand. Ethan was trembling in the corner of the room. Sarah embraced him, gently saying, "It's okay. Mommy will be all right." As the sound of the ambulance siren approached, Sarah prayed by her daughter's side. She had no way of knowing yet that this night would change their lives forever. Amidst the blaring of ambulance sirens, Emily was rushed to the emergency room. Sarah hurried down the hospital corridor, tightly holding Ethan's small hand. Her heart was pounding fiercely, her mind filled with anxiety and fear. Long hours passed in the waiting room. Exhausted, Ethan fell asleep on Sarah's lap. But Sarah couldn't even close her eyes. She continued to pray for her daughter's safety, waiting for the doctor's report. Several hours later, the attending physician finally appeared. "Mrs. Thompson, your daughter's condition has stabilized," the doctor said. Sarah breathed a sigh of relief at his words. However, there was significant blood loss and internal organ damage. We also found multiple old scars. The doctor's expression darkened. "Mrs. Thompson, I hate to say this, but these injuries appear to be the result of long-term physical abuse." Sarah was at a loss for words. To think that her daughter had been suffering for so long. Why hadn't she noticed? A sense of self-reproach washed over her. "We've already notified the police," the doctor continued. "They should be here soon to speak with you." True to his words, 2 police officers soon appeared in the hospital room. They carefully took statements from Sarah and Ethan. Ethan's testimony was surprisingly detailed and calm, considering his age. "Daddy always hit Mommy," Ethan said in a small voice. "Today, it was because Mommy was late preparing dinner." The officers listened attentively to Ethan's story, taking careful notes. Sarah was struck by her grandson's courage, while at the same time, her heart ached for the terrible events this small child had witnessed. As the investigation progressed, a pattern of Jason's violent behavior became clear. He had frequently been violent towards Emily, citing work stress and financial problems as reasons. And the violence had escalated year by year. The police immediately issued an arrest warrant for Jason and began their search. Sarah still couldn't fully grasp the reality that her son-in-law had committed such brutal acts. The next day, Emily regained consciousness. Her face was covered in bruises, and her voice was weak, but Sarah couldn't help but be grateful that she was alive. "I'm sorry, Mom," Emily said, tears welling up. I didn't want to worry you. Sarah gently held her daughter's hand. It's okay now, Emily. You're safe. No one can hurt you anymore. That afternoon, they received a call from the police. Jason had been arrested in a neighboring town. They said he surrendered without resistance. Upon hearing this news, Emily and Sarah were enveloped in complex emotions. Relief and sadness, anger and frustration, and anxiety all mixed together. They didn't know what difficulties lay ahead. But Sarah made a strong vow. No matter what happened, she would protect her daughter and grandson. The sunlight streaming through the hospital room window seemed to herald the beginning of a new chapter. Several days had passed since Jason's arrest, and Emily's condition was gradually improving. However, the wounds in her heart were deep and had not yet healed. One day, they received a call from the police with new information about Jason's background. He was a former soldier who had served in the Iraq War. And after returning home, he had been diagnosed with PTSD. Furthermore, it was revealed that he had become dependent on alcohol to suppress his symptoms. Emily was shocked to hear this. Why didn't he tell me?" she murmured. Jason had avoided talking to his family about his military experiences and had kept his PTSD diagnosis and treatment a secret. Sarah sat next to her daughter and gently put an arm around her shoulders. "Maybe he didn't want to show his weakness," she said softly. Emily was overwhelmed with complex emotions. While she knew in her head that this doesn't justify violence, she realized that a part of her heart was still trying to understand Jason. "Am I strange?" Emily confessed to Sarah through tears. "After all the terrible things that happened, I still find myself thinking about Jason." Sarah embraced her daughter gently. "You're not strange, Emily. The human heart isn't so easily divided. But remember, your safety is the most important thing." According to the police report, Jason had fled after the incident out of guilt and fear. He had wandered around neighboring towns for several days, relying on alcohol and struggling with whether to turn himself in. In the end, he was discovered and arrested by the police. Meanwhile, Ethan was showing unexpected growth. In his sessions with the hospital psychologist, he had learned to express his feelings through drawings and poetry. One day, Ethan showed his grandmother a picture. It depicted a family being beaten by rain under dark clouds, with a large rainbow shining above them. "This is our family," Ethan explained. "It's tough now, but I believe we'll all be smiling again someday." Sarah was surprised and moved by her grandson's growth. She never imagined this little boy had such deep insight. Ethan's drawing became a topic of conversation among the hospital staff. There was even a request to use it in art therapy for PTSD patients. Emily, too, showed a genuine smile for the first time when she saw her son's drawing. "Thank you, Ethan. Looking at your picture gives me hope," she said. However, difficulties still continued. As Jason's trial approached, Emily's anxiety grew. She repeatedly questioned whether she was ready to take the witness stand. The family's future was still uncertain, but they had begun to walk the path of healing and understanding, one step at a time. As Jason's trial began, Emily had to take the witness stand. Although she trembled with anxiety and fear, she mustered the courage to tell the truth. The trial process was mentally grueling, but the support of Sarah and Ethan gave Emily strength. As a result of the trial, Jason was found guilty and sentenced to serve time in prison and participate in a rehabilitation program. For Emily, it was a relief, but also the beginning of a new life. A few weeks after Emily's discharge from the hospital, her physical wounds were gradually healing, but it seemed it would take more time to heal the wounds in her heart. Sarah welcomed her daughter and grandson into her home, fully supporting their recovery. Every morning, Emily went to the hospital for rehabilitation. Regaining function in her broken arm wasn't easy, but she didn't give up. "I need this arm to return to work as a nurse," she said, gritting her teeth and continuing her efforts. At the same time, Emily started attending psychological counseling. At first, she struggled to put her feelings into words, but gradually she became able to express her inner thoughts. "There's a part of me that wants to hate Jason, but I can't hate him completely," she confided to her counselor. "But I'll never go back to him. I have Ethan now." Ethan showed remarkable growth in this difficult situation. Every day, he expressed his feelings by drawing pictures or writing poems. One day, he read a poem to his family. "Broken family, but we're still alive. Even when it rains, the sun will surely show its face. Mom's tears will make new flowers bloom. Together, we can become strong." Hearing this poem, Emily and Sarah shed tears. Ethan's words had lit a beacon of hope in their hearts. Ethan's works played a big role in the family's recovery process. His drawings and poems were also used in art therapy for PTSD patients at the hospital, giving hope to many people. Meanwhile, Jason was participating in a rehabilitation program in prison. At first, he was resistant, but through the program, he began to understand the causes of his behavior. He received treatment for PTSD and alcohol dependence and learned anger management skills. One day, Jason wrote a letter to Emily. "Emily, I know what I did is unforgivable. The pain I've caused you and Ethan can never be fully repaid, even if I spend my whole life trying. But now, I'm determined never to repeat the same mistakes. I'm truly sorry for ruining your lives." Reading this letter, Emily was hit with complex emotions. She wasn't ready to forgive Jason yet, but she could understand that he was trying to change. As time passed, Emily's physical recovery progressed smoothly. She gradually regained her daily life and was even able to return to work part-time. Emotional recovery took more time, but thanks to family support and counseling, Emily was gradually able to look forward. She joined a support group and found comfort in interacting with people who had similar experiences, realizing she wasn't alone. The whole family was in the process of recovery. It wasn't easy, but they were living each day preciously, supporting each other. The wounds might never completely heal, but they were slowly gaining the strength to build a new future. A year has passed since then. Emily has fully returned to work and is once again pursuing her career as a nurse. Her eyes now hold a confidence and strength that wasn't there before. Ethan is achieving excellent grades in elementary school, and his artistic talent is blossoming more and more. His drawings won an award at a local art festival, which the whole family celebrated. Sarah, proudly watching her family overcome this ordeal, was savoring a quiet happiness. She still sometimes remembers that rainy night. The fear and anxiety from that time have now become nourishment that deepens the family bond. One evening during dinner, Emily suddenly spoke up. "Mom, Ethan, why don't we go on a trip, just the three of us?" Sarah was surprised but felt joy welling up inside her. She realized her daughter had begun to look towards the future. "That's a wonderful idea, Emily," Sarah smiled. "Where would you like to go?" "The sea," Ethan shouted excitedly. "I want to see big waves." They laughed and began planning their trip. In that moment, Sarah felt hope for her family's future. The wounds may not have healed completely, but they were moving forward together. Sarah thought that was the most important thing. Jason is sometimes brought up in conversation. He continues to serve his sentence in prison while earnestly working on his rehabilitation program. Emily hasn't forgiven him yet, but she's trying to maintain a peaceful relationship for Ethan's sake. Sarah had come to want to give back to the community what she had learned through this experience. She began volunteering at a local domestic violence support group, sharing her own experiences to support people in similar situations. Looking towards the future, Sarah was enveloped in deep relief and gratitude. Her family had overcome an unimaginable ordeal and become stronger. There will surely be difficult times ahead. But she was certain this family could overcome any difficulty together. Sarah looked out the window. The setting sun was beautifully coloring the sky. A new morning will come again with new hope. She smiled quietly. Tomorrow will surely be an even more wonderful day than today.